11 o'clock, so we will get our meeting started. If you'd all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We'll get things started. Tonight we've got Dr. Jennifer Stanfill, who will recognize Parkway's 2022 summer school program and the individuals who assisted with the program. So at this time, Jennifer, welcome.
Hello. Get my notes. There we go. Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, and Mrs. Stover. I'm so pleased to be here tonight to highlight Parkway's 2022 summer school program and the amazing individuals who were committed to ensuring that our students and staff had a meaningful and positive experience. So our K-12 summer programming launched on June 13th, and while some programming concluded in June, we had other high school programs and camps that ran through the end of July. Our Jumpstart to Kindergarten program welcomes our incoming kindergartners into our schools. We also have our Reading and Math Boost program, which is an invitation-based remedial program for students going in grades 1 through 8. And the program focused on improving reading and math skills in order to prepare kids for a successful start to this school year. During 2022, we continue to offer families high-quality tuition-based enrichment programs through our partnership with Parkway Rockwood Community Ed, as well as Parkway's long-lasting Camp Fantastic and sports skills camps. Lastly, our high school students had access to high school credit advancement courses online, as well as credit recovery courses and online courses through Missouri Course Access Program. Lastly, we offered the Maryville College admissions and ACT prep program. So we had a lot going on with students this summer. We had about 4,560 students participating. 500 of those students came from Jumpstart to Kindergarten, around 2,000 in Reading and Math Boost. We had 278 kids in Camp Fantastic and more than 1,600 high school students taking summer classes. As you can imagine, serving more than 4,500 students requires a great deal of planning and preparation. While all administrators are involved in the work of supporting summer school, we do have a team of lead administrators at each level who spend countless hours planning, communicating, hiring teams of high-quality teachers, hiring support staff, and communicating regularly with students and families. I would like to take a moment to recognize these administrators and share my sincere gratitude with them for their commitment and dedication to our summer school program. First, we have our elementary team. Christy Lady from Barrett's, Dan Breedencutter from Wren Hollow, Megan Gerberding from Mason Ridge, Brian Meckel from Claymont, Will Nunn from Craig, Jamie Cohey from Ross, and Felicia Chattersboy from Shenandoah Valley. Our secondary team, we had Jessica Cavazos Roche from Southwest Middle, Tamika Dukes from West Middle, Nyron Edwards from Central Middle, Erica Rogers from South Middle, and Charlotta Williams from Northeast Middle. At the high school level, we had Breanne Smith from West, Eric Wilhelm from South, Travis Fast and Marvin Bird, both from Central High, and Michael Zitzer from North. Parkway's also fortunate to have a ton of individuals who lead lots of different programs in the summer school program, Thank you to Emily Soto, Kelly Watson, and Teal London, who oversaw the Special School District extended school year program that ran in our schools. Special thanks also to Val Camhigh from West High, who has always supported the high school summer school program and provided guidance for our special education teachers and learners. Special thanks to Shelley Greenfield, Jim, and Linda Duke, who have been involved with Camp Fantastic for many, many years and continue to come back year after year to work with these kiddos. A special thanks to Mike Podortsky and the Parkway Rockwood Community Ed team for their work in creating and implementing our summer enrichment camps. And to Casey Holland, West High teacher, but also our Maryville College admissions program director, and he does a phenomenal job. I am also incredibly grateful for my assistant, Lisa Bengert. She is phenomenal, and she works so hard to ensure that summer school runs smoothly. I absolutely could never do this work without her by my side. As I conclude, I wanted to let you know that more detailed information about summer school, including financials and all of those fun details, will be coming later in the fall after we have our finalized financial information. But I want to just thank you all for your unwavering support of Parkway Summer School, because without you, it would be very difficult to run a program of this size. And so we just all want to say thank you, and we'll see you next summer.
Thank you.
Could I just comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, just so everybody's aware, Jennifer's title is Director of Choice Programs. And so summer school, she's taken that on. I just want to say that my experience over many, many years in other districts has been, it's kind of an add-on. But Jennifer takes this very seriously, and she puts together, and she'll probably start working on summer school. Maybe you start working on summer school 2023 already, Jennifer, knowing you. So I just want to, she's been so complimentary, but I want to be complimentary. We need to give Jennifer some kudos because she does a great job. We know that with learning loss that we've heard, or just the need to get students, ongoing experiences, summer school is really important, maybe more important than ever before. So the fact we had 4,500 students participate in some aspects, and many of them in reading and math and some other makeups is really essential. Jennifer, I don't know if you can answer this, but I know from my peers that you don't have other school districts in the region that would have 4,500 kids probably this summer, right? Am I correct?
Not that I am aware of,
so,
no.
So that's not that the other districts, but the variety of programming and the consistency and our ability to get our staff, and sometimes we have to go outside and hire staff that are certified to do the work is also very, very important. So I think, again, just want to salute Jennifer, because without her leadership and the consistency that she's provided the last several years, we would not have had the quality and the outcomes that we have.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks again to Jennifer and all the individuals who have helped make Parkway's 2022 summer school session a success. And thanks, of course, to all the students who have attended our programs over the summer. Next up, we have one addition and/or correction and/or modification to tonight's agenda. That is 7.01, addendum to agenda item 11.06, approval of personnel items. Next up, we have public comments. It's during this time that we provide an opportunity for citizen comments in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. The public comment session is not the appropriate forum for addressing individually identifiable student and/or personnel matters. Therefore, due to privacy laws protecting students and employees, comments about these matters should not include personally identifiable information about particular students or employees. Members of the public, staff, and students are encouraged to utilize established policies and procedures for offering suggestions or addressing concerns and complaints prior to bringing the issue before the board. Please be mindful that the meetings of the board, including your statements at the podium, are broadcast, and that you are responsible for any public comments you make. In lieu of a public statement, you may choose to submit your comments to the board in writing. Also, due to time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. We are always available to have an open dialogue outside of our meetings and can be reached by email or phone using the contact information on the Parkway website. Tonight, I believe we have one speaker, so that speaker will have 3 minutes, and I would ask you to identify yourself and your affiliation or relationship to or with Parkway. And there will be a countdown timer somewhere on a screen indicating the time you have left. Our only speaker tonight is Olivia Jones.
Hello, my name is Olivia Jones, and I'm the Parkway parent who spoke here in May about my concerns for preventing child sexual abuse in our schools. I am here tonight with a specific, actionable request. Please direct Parkway to track and monitor staff sexual misconduct allegations and their outcomes. This will improve policymaking to help keep Parkway students safe. After speaking here in May, I learned of 5 more misconduct incidents in Parkway. So I reached out to the district to find out what is the prevalence of staff sexual misconduct in Parkway. From multiple administrators, I have been told that Parkway does not have an answer to that question because this information is not tracked in aggregate, but instead exists only within individual personnel files, which are closed records. And there is no administrator tasked with oversight of staff sexual misconduct prevalence. And there is no internal review process for summarizing or analyzing prevalence, either for routine policy making or in response to substantiated cases. I also made a sunshine law request, which concluded there is no tracking or documentation of staff sexual misconduct prevalence in Parkway. The importance of tracking and monitoring this data is hard to overstate. Knowing how often and under what circumstances sexual misconduct occurs in our schools directs us to the very points of vulnerability and system failures that we need to address to prevent recurrence. And in fact, I was told that following each of the 6 incidents that I am aware of, Parkway administrators made no recommendations to the board for improving prevention policies. We can and must do better for the safety of our students. We have a safety department and an Office of Student Services, but neither of these departments have access to data on staff sexual misconduct. Is this how we treat other student safety measures in Parkway, such as fire safety, bus safety, or playground safety? What is different about child sexual abuse that this safety data is not being shared and utilized for policy making in Parkway? The U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights performs a biennial survey to monitor for compliance with civil rights statutes in public schools. This information is also used for national research and policy making. In the 2021 school year, they added for the first time optional questions specific to staff sexual misconduct allegations. Parkway opted out of answering these questions and sharing its data. Lastly, any parent should be able to contact the district to get an answer to the question, how many staff have sexually abused children? As a parent, it has been so distressing to ask this question and not get an answer. How can I give informed consent for the school to act in loco parentis when the district will not disclose to me how many and how often of its staff are critically injuring children? Because that's what child sexual abuse is. It is a critical injury. And when injuries happen over and over again, this is an institutional problem requiring institutional oversight and reforms. And so I ask you, please direct Parkway to track and monitor staff sexual misconduct allegations and their outcomes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda of the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for August 10th, 2022?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, September 7th, 2022, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Parkway Welcome Center. Next up, we have board and superintendent reports.
I'll be very brief. With the new school year upon us, I hope that the students, their families, teachers, staff, and administration has gotten away for the summer a little bit, gotten a break, gotten a breather, and I'm glad that we're kind of coming back to a more normal approach this school year too. So hopefully everybody got a break, got a breather, and can really kind of come into the school year ready to go, and I'm excited to see what happens for the upcoming school year.
We want to echo what Matt said. Very excited for the upcoming school year. Obviously, given this is my first beginning of the school year as board member, very excited to get to visit some schools, meet new administrators, meet new teachers, seeing all the summer activities. I remember I did Parkway camp and sports camp, so it reminded me of those times. If you haven't gotten your school supplies, I know they were pretty low a couple weekends ago, so make sure you get those now. Other than that, excited for the school year.
Hearing Jennifer Stanfield talk about everything that happened this summer was awesome. The kinds of things that we do at Parkway just always make me so proud in that regard. And my family, we participated in the Jumpstart to Kindergarten. It was a great program. And today I was able to get out for a walk this morning. I live very close to Parkway West High and walked the campus. And it was full of football players practicing, softball players, cross-country runners running. And there was just this crisp feeling of the school year's upon us. The parking lot was nearly full. And it just filled me with a feeling of enthusiasm for the school year to come. So, last month in July, we didn't have a formal meeting, so we're back at it now, and it just feels like the school year is really starting, and I'm very excited for all the students, and I'm hoping for a great year.
So the summer flew by. I started in June, and in July I was able to attend the media training for new administrators with Paul Tandy and Annie Dickerson. They did a great job. I was only able to stay a short time, but the information that they provided was so helpful to be able to communicate with different audiences. And I will echo the three gentlemen next to me that I too am looking forward to this upcoming school year and being able to attend the various events and with our students. So I'm excited.
So I wasn't at the June board meeting. I believe it's the first one I missed. My wife had a pretty special birthday that day, and I had a big party. I invited all the board members and the SAT team, and I guess you guys had plans on June 15th. But in any event, so it feels like I haven't been here for a while, and it's nice to be back. But it's also, it's nice to see new faces. You know, Matt and I, this is our 4th year on the school board, and there was relatively little turnover along the board, and now here we are, and there's 3 new board members, and some new faces on SAT, and we have 2 Tiffanys now, and that's exciting. And so, like everybody else, I'm excited about a new year. I'm excited to have kind of a new team here. We had a hearing earlier this week, and you know, the 7 of us hadn't done anything together yet as a group, and it was encouraging. I feel like it was good communication, like we've been working together for a while, and like everyone else, I guess we all just keep saying how excited we are, but I guess I'm excited too to work with all of you and all of you.
And with that, over the summer, one of a very important event that took place in light of what we've all seen with some mass school shootings of late has been very concerning. And over the summer, 2 of our police departments requested use of our school sites, some of our school sites, so that they could train their officers. And our Parkway Security Department was involved in those active shooter trainings as well. And so they did not involve the Parkway staff. That's actually going to be taking place on Friday. There will be a 4E training for our staff to get ramped up on how to manage what happens during an active shooting if that were to take place. So the Chesterfield Police Department conducted the training at West Middle, Central Middle, and Highcroft Ridge Elementary. And then the Manchester Police Department conducted a similar training with their officers at South High. And they had the opportunity to learn how to neutralize a threat, as well as how to search and clear classrooms, so that if anything were to happen, they are already trained, they know where to go, they know how to get in, and they're prepared. So I have to say I was very pleased to see and hear that this was taking place within Parkway, so that we can ensure that our staff and students will be as safe as possible if an unfortunate event like this were to happen. We're hopefully as prepared as we probably can be.
And I'll just add my 2 cents as far as excitement for the new school year. One of the things that I get to do as president is welcome new groups of administrators and teachers and staff to the district at various kickoff events. And we had the new Educator orientation meeting earlier this week. I got to meet, not all of them unfortunately, but about 140 or so new educators, between people, Parkway employees and special school district employees that are going to be in our buildings, and just a really exciting group of people. Got to talk to a number of them, and just really, they're so eager to get in the buildings and teach our kids, and that was just really, it's always great for me to do things like that. The board recently conducted CMAR interviews, construction manager at risk. Those are something that we have to do every 3 or 4 years, and we made selection based on on a wide variety of criteria, financial and all sorts of criteria. And so that firm will be announced at some point in the very near future once they're officially selected. And that was a great experience as well. The board recently conducted CMAR interviews, construction manager at risk. Those are something that we have to do every 3 or 4 years, and we made selection based on a wide variety of criteria, financial and all sorts of criteria. And so that firm will be announced at some point in the very near future once they're officially selected. And that was a great experience as well. I also want to give a shout out to our Alumni Association. They put on a couple of events this summer. They had a baseball game, day at the ball game. They did a pool party, and they just do some amazing work. For those of you who aren't aware, Parkway has one of the few as robust of a alumni association that we do across the country. There are not many school districts across the country that can say they have 80,000 alums that they are actively engaged with through email and quarterly newsletters, and we just have a wonderful staff that take care of that work. I'd also like to, I sent an email to the board earlier today, but I completed my Safe Schools training for the year. It's something that we ask, or we require every Parkway employee to do every year. And they have a certain amount of time at the beginning of the school year that they have to complete about 6 hours worth of training. It's all online, watching some videos and taking tests and things, and it ranges everything from sexual harassment and sexual abuse to bloodborne pathogens and just everything that you would hope that an employee in a school district would be trained to be aware of our policies and procedures. So I would challenge each of our board members to complete that training because I think as a board member, I think it gives us a really good perspective of what we expect of our employees, and hopefully we're able to model those expectations, and then they in turn can model those to our students. And then lastly, I'd also like to give a little bit of a recognition to former board member Chris Jacob. Chris was on the board for, I believe, 9 years.
Yes,
Passed away a few weeks ago. He was board president for several years. Was an outstanding board member. A lot of great contributions to the district, and he will be missed.
Very nice, Jeff. Thank you. Well, it's great to hear all your positive comments because we've had a really exciting start. And then, Rob, you're right. It's great to see the athletes out and the fall sports starting. But it's been really exciting. Besides the teachers, last week we had an all-administrative meeting. We have 27 new leaders, administrators in roles. Some of them are just moved to a different role within Parkway, but 27 folks that are new of our about 125 administrators. And so Jeff was there last week to greet them as well. And so we spent a day getting really kind of back in the mood, but obviously our administrators work all summer. Besides the 140 educators, and I want to just say that both our leaders and I've been able to go up the hill, so all week long I've been trekking up the hill to see the new teachers and meeting them, and we have some wonderful new educators in Parkway, some who are coming to us from experience, some brand new, but I'm really impressed with their enthusiasm. And I just want to say that when you ask them, well, why Parkway? And they said, well, I've always wanted to be in a district where people really worked hard. Children are the center of the work, and Parkway has such a great reputation. You have such great tradition, so we're really excited about the folks that we have, and I want to just say to Mike and HR, who've been busy, what good work that they've done, and of course principals and all the people that participate in the hiring process. So it's great and exciting. I think we really have wonderful new leaders and folks that are going to continue the great tradition here in Parkway. Today, we had a Parkway job fair. And we've had a couple over the time that we've been trying to close the gap in some of our operational needs. And we had 37 people come in the door today. 37 people come, and we hope a number of them, I think Mike's already started to screen, or the department has, and we think we hopefully will have some new employees in areas where we really have some gaps. Teacher's assistant, custodial, food service, and some others. So we're really excited about the fact that we had that turnout today. We were just kind of blown away. And just talking to some of those folks, are new to the region, new to the area, some saying, hey, I want to go back to work. And so it seems like Parkway is a good place to work. So we're pretty excited about that potential. Just also want to mention over the summer, a number of us went to Washington, D.C. the last week of June. We, as we've talked about over the last year, we're a AASA, that's the Superintendent Association, demonstration school. And last year, you may remember, we had a gentleman by the name of Ray McNulty, who's kind of oversees a lot of that work here in Parkway. And so we got to go, we got to present, and we got honored. And so we were one of, there were some districts that got what's called the Lighthouse Award. We had applied for that, but we got a school district to watch award, and we hope next year we'll be at the Lighthouse level. But we got to present, we got to meet a lot of people. There was about 1,000 educators at the conference. A lot of this team was there, Tiffany and Kevin, Greg. And the fact Greg and Kevin did most of the presentation, they let me say a few words in the presentation. But we talked a little bit about some of the good work we're doing in Parkway to really think about the future. The whole concept of this work is thinking about, it's called Vision 2025. Public education staying viable and relevant to the needs of our society and to our students. And so we're excited to be part of that work. Will continue. I was also at the DESI conference last week, the Commissioners' Summer Conference. And I have to say that it was very, very good, optimistic. Just like all you, it seemed like the superintendents are a little bit more optimistic. Maybe because we got about 200 new superintendents, I think, in Missouri. They don't know what they don't know, right? It was exciting, and actually the governor came and I think did really a nice job of talking positively and very honestly about Missouri's needs to close the gap on teacher salary, which there were some efforts to do that this year, and also to fund transportation. So. He actually got a very warm welcome from us because we really appreciate his effort. Of course, workforce development is a big part of the governor. And actually, we've extended an invitation. We hope the governor takes it to come to Parkway sometime, hopefully at the start of the school year, because he has done, I think, a good job in supporting public education. We want to recognize that. Good work, and I want to say that there's a lot of new initiatives happening in the state. Kevin is certainly going to be very, very much involved in MSEP 6. And Tiffany asked, what is MSEP 6 the other day? That's our accreditation system. We've had 5 generations, and now we're moving to the 6th generation. And we'll have a lot of work in that area. We're actually going to be kind of a pilot school. Parkway is going to be a pilot district. And then also the work of Kevin and Jennifer who participated last year in Success Ready Task Force, Success Ready Students Task Force, and that's moving forward as well. And we may be participating in that more actively this year. Really more of a competency-based approach to learning for students that really would benefit from that approach. So some good things happening in the state. I think there's some new optimism there. Debbie brought up safety, and I just want to say safety has been something that and thanks Debbie for mentioning all that. The other day, Paul and I had the pleasure to meet with our SROs at middle and high school, and you're right, 4E training on Friday. So I just want to thank Paul's working hard to maintain the concern about safety. Obviously, after the Texas incident, there's a lot of concern about safety. We will eventually have our vestibules completed, right, Ms. Bedborough, but we may not have them all ready at the beginning of the school year because of some supply issues. But that also enhances certainly our safety issues. As you know, we made some changes in transportation. I have to say that Will Rosa has done a marvelous job over the summer, almost single-handedly and with his staff to really assure parents. Many of them were concerned about the changes. We also were able to hire drivers, so we're in pretty good shape, but we, of course, reduced the routes just to be able to not have a crisis start of school year. But Will deserves a real strong pat on the back and praise for his work in working with families. And also principals for working on with families who are going to be walking and trying to think of walk groups and how they can strategize that. I think that covers most of it. Jeff mentioned the Parkway Alumni Association. I was going to mention that work. And I just want to conclude by saying that a lot of you know that Dr. Curtis Kane is the new superintendent at Rockwood. I've known Curtis for a lot of years, and I'm so excited to have him next door. And we've started a meeting with him already. We're trying to certainly work together with Parkway. We have a lot of work. Jennifer works with a lot of her programs, Spark programs, early college. So I think Curtis is only going to enhance the relationship between the two districts because of his strong desire to really cooperate and work together. And so delighted to have him as a colleague in the area. He's going to be a marvelous leader in our region. He already has been. If you didn't know, Curtis Kane was the National Superintendent of the Year last year, which is quite a compliment, and we're so glad to have him still stay in the area. So thank you for allowing me to have some time here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next up, we have a relatively brief but important nonetheless consent agenda, which we've all had an opportunity to review. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the August 10th, 2022 board materials?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have the consideration and action of Parkway's pandemic response plan. So I'd like to invite Dr. Greg Matheson, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, and Dr. Tiffany Holman-Bess, Deputy Superintendent.
Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, fellow board members, Dr. Marty, and Ms. Stouffer. This evening, SAT will update you with changes and modifications to Parkway's pandemic response plan. As we look at the pandemic response plan, we want you to know that we followed best practice in Parkway and keeping true to our mission statement and making sure that we can come through and still deliver on our mission to make sure that our students are following the 4 C's, being capable, curious, caring, and confident as they are making their way through our school. We want them to be successful, and most importantly, we want our students and our community and our parents and our staff to be supported with these changes. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Matheson to walk through the pandemic response plan, and we will also be happy to take your questions afterwards.
Great, thank you. So as we've come over the last two and a half years with working through and talking about our safety and our mitigation strategies for COVID, we're now at a point here to kind of look through and see some changes as some of those things are starting to come up with keeping our kids safe at schools. Those are going to stay the same. I'm just going to go through some of these bullet points. I'm going to concentrate on the bullet points on the right today, as the ones on the left that our board has approved previously, as we're looking at screening and testing, vaccinations, clean and healthy habits, accommodating all students, and community input. Those are some items that need to be in a pandemic response plan. Those are staying in this plan and staying fairly unchanged. We want to recognize those things, but tonight I'm going to really concentrate on the communicable disease policies, face coverings, and additional items. So on the slides I will present tonight, you'll see the components of the proposed plan and the shifts in our response as Missouri is now in an endemic phase. Tonight I'll highlight the recommended changes by the administration. The recommended changes, if approved, would take effect on August 11th, 2022. That seems a far way away as we started the summer, but that's actually tomorrow. I was like, yeah, that's a while. No, that's tomorrow that these would take into effect. While creating the recommendations, the Superintendent's Action Team, as we call SAT, has sought input from our district leaders, from our PNEA, that's our Parkway National Education Association, our PNA, our Parkway Nurses Association, our Medical Advisory Committee, and our Health Services team, among others. The input received from these groups was incredibly valuable, and I want to thank the group for their insight and their support. Tonight, I will concentrate on our communicable disease policy, face coverings, and several additional items. I'm not planning to read the slides exactly to you, but I will go through and highlight some of those important parts. Individuals who are infected with COVID-19 in our plan would be treated similarly to other contagious illnesses using our current board policies and Missouri law. Health-related situations would be handled on a case-by-case basis. Students and staff should follow the guidance of their healthcare provider and review CDC recommendations in order to determine the best course of action for their situation. We are also would discontinue COVID-specific practices such as daily health screenings. We would encourage people to every day wake up and say, how am I feeling? Do I have any of these symptoms listed on the board? Do I maybe have a fever? And if so, we would ask them to stay home. We would also look at discontinuing some practices around quarantines, specific attendance codes, exposure letters, mandatory masking, and others. I'll get into those a little bit later. The following protocols would be in place. Students and staff would not be permitted to attend school or be sent home if they have symptoms of a contagious illness and or have a fever. Prior to returning to school or work, students or staff will no longer, prior to returning to school or work, students or staff would need to no longer have a fever, and also that their symptoms have been, I'm thinking the word, I can't see very well, substantially improved. So their symptoms would have to be substantially improved and no fever for more than 24 hours. On here is a link to our district's communicable disease policies. Just for your reference, these are our policies along with the state statute. So around face coverings. So what do these changes mean for face coverings? Face coverings will no longer be required of students, staff, or visitors, and will no longer utilize building level threshold to determine if students, staff, and visitors must wear a face covering. However, students, staff, and visitors may choose to wear face coverings to address their own individual health needs. We expect our community to be respectful of the choices of others. Moving forward, Parkway will discontinue contact tracing and close contact letters and will follow the communicable disease policy for communication as we have in the past with the flu or whooping cough and other contagious illnesses. Staff and students, and I've said this before, I'll reiterate it, staff and students will be able to return to school or work provided that their symptoms have substantially improved as they are fever-free for at least 24 hours. The district will no longer monitor the 5-day return for COVID-19 or the 6 to 10-day CDC recommendation for mask wearing upon return. The district will instruct students and staff to follow the guidance of their healthcare professional. It is recommended that those returning days 6 through 10 wear a well-fitted mask per CDC guidelines. Students and staff will no longer need to fill out a return to work or a return to school form. Staff should follow the guidance of their healthcare provider and also review the CDC recommendations to determine the best course of action. If a staff member is absent for more than 3 days, a doctor's note is needed per board policy. Moving forward, Parkway will continue to work with students, families, and staff in regard to their academic, social, emotional, and health needs. We will continue to monitor absences and local health conditions. We will allow building principals to return to pre-pandemic processes in regard to volunteers, visitors, and field trips. And most importantly, Parkway will focus on our mission while ensuring the 22-23 school year allows for each student to be capable, confident, curious, and caring. C.S. Lewis, I feel, sums this up in very short few words. There are far better things ahead than we leave behind. Thank you. And I'm open for questions. We have Dr. Holman Bess, and we also have Diane Brown, our Director of Health Services.
Okay. I think I'm glad that we're getting to this point where we see that there are some treatment strategies, including vaccinations, prevention strategies rather, vaccinations, and the ability to wear a face covering if we want or not. But I think we still need to acknowledge that there's some trepidation by our community, that we're no longer monitoring, tracking, doing contact tracing in our schools. And so I guess how can we feel comfortable that we're not tracking COVID cases any longer, and that, it's still not the same as the flu, it's still not the same as a whooping cough. There's still a few differences here with that. Not everybody can get vaccinated yet or qualify for vaccinations, especially our younger children. So we're just trying to get comfortable with this idea of how we're moving in this new direction of, don't ask, don't tell, almost kind of thing. So
I'm not sure
how do we get comfortable with the new direction that we're going here?
I'm not sure that I'm trying to communicate a don't ask, don't tell. We're trying to move to a more fluid endemic phase in which we would use our contagious disease policy. So if students, just like we had before, and even now, even in our current plan, if a student came to school or a staff member came to school with symptoms of a contagious illness, our health professionals who are outstanding and do a lot of work would work with them and let them know, hey, you meet these, and it could be possibly COVID, it could be something else. We need you to go home because this could be a contagious disease, and we would ask them to work with their healthcare provider. You mentioned another thing about what about that we're not going to be following whether it's 5 days or not. So what day? In all honesty, we are using the parents and the students or the staff members' best judgment, and we are currently doing that now. We have students who we would be on contact tracing. Sorry, there's Diane over there. We would do contact tracing, or the student would be ill. We'd send them home, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, how long do they have to be out? 5 days. Let's count those days. Well, when did their symptoms start? Actually, 3 days ago, 4 days ago. We've been using what the parents have told us as where their start date was. It wasn't always when a positive test had occurred. So we will still give guidance and tell families and talk to families of what the best procedures would be, guidance. But what we really want to do is to have them work with their healthcare professional. And if a student were to come back, let's say, and they still have several items that they're struggling with or fever, we would put them back in the nurse's office, and then we would send them back home until that those things have been reduced. That's the critical part, is we want to make sure that symptoms have been reduced and that they're fever-free for over 24 hours.
And it would seem like if we would see a preponderance of absences coming in, that would be a telltale sign. And then what would happen at that point of making recommendations with the building?
Right, that would be something that we would discuss within health services and discuss with SAT, and have and most likely bring in the Department of Health, ask their opinion as well, and work those things out. I think it was many years ago, I wasn't here at the time, but I heard that we had a case at an elementary school where we had a flu outbreak, and we had a lot of absences, so much so that we couldn't even cover some classes, and you could see the attendance spreading. So those would be not spreading, the attendance wasn't the amount of absences were increasing, sorry. And so we were able to interject, and per our policy, we still are able to do those things if we see those markers go up. So we'll be monitoring that. Same thing with our health professionals in the schools would be monitoring that as well.
I think in a couple of cases, we actually closed an elementary school building or two to prevent the spread of, I forget what it was, whooping cough or the flu or whatever for a short time. So I assume that would be still on the table.
Correct.
Regardless if it was COVID or flu.
That's
or
right.
Whatever. Okay.
Correct. We do want our community and our parents to have conversations with our health services team. We want them to have conversations with our nurses. We want our staff to do the same thing. And if students aren't feeling well, staff aren't feeling well, what we're asking them to do is have that conversation, and if they have the symptoms and things that I posted here and maybe others, and we send them home, we want them to be directed to a healthcare provider and then follow that guidance. And then when they return, and we would monitor, as students were to come back, if a teacher said, you know what, they still have 3 symptoms and they have a productive cough and it's just like it was 2 days ago, they'll be back in the nurse's office. The nurse will then make their professional judgment of what needs to occur next, and most likely excluding them from school.
We had great communication last, Friday afternoon with a lot of this information. Is that something we're going to continue doing these weeks and days before school starts, and even as we get back into the school year?
On communicating with families?
Yeah, about all
Yes.
this.
And we actually plan to follow up tomorrow.
I think reminders would be good.
Yeah, reminders, and here's the thing, we're not out of the woods with COVID, and this shift is not saying that we're out of the woods with COVID. Right. We still, as the CDC and our medical health advisors, we talk to them, we still need to remind our families that some of the best things strategies we can use. We still have our mitigation strategies around hand washing, using masking for personal protection. Also, well-fitted, good masks. We will have those provided for students or staff that need them, but also with our families, and reminding that vaccinations do help within the decrease of significant disease. It does also help for families to utilize masking if they so choose. And so, I think that we need to continue. And Ms. Hopper, I'm glad that you said this. Is like we're not out of the realm of what's going on with COVID. But what we're trying to do as a district is to move and shift to this endemic phase so that we can keep consistent what we do for other contagious diseases. The flu season is going to be coming up, and I think that's going to be hitting us pretty hard too. And so how do we streamline and also make sure that we're making the right decisions for kids and families? Well, keeping them safe. We still are going to do accommodations for families that may need that. Students who may have some special health needs, we'll be working with those families as we have already in the past. And same thing with staff members as we have in the past. So those conversations are still going on.
And are we still trying to do some distancing from each other in the classrooms or in the cafeterias at all, or what's that going to look like?
There in this, and I apologize. There was a bullet that said social distancing. You know, we in our plan before it said social distancing as possible. It's really difficult and not necessarily possible. And actually on the academic side, it's very difficult if you want to do collaboration and some group work and things to keep people 3 and 6 feet apart. I think on the academic side, I won't want to speak necessarily for all the academic pieces, but I think there's some benefit of actually having closer connections with students and folks. So that's just not something that's in this current plan, is a specific 3 to 6 foot ratio, no.
So they're gonna go back to cafeterias, being everybody in the cafeteria together, or are they still gonna have the same
I believe
ratio?
that's gonna be a school-based decision.
Mhm.
I think we've learned quite a bit through COVID on some things that may actually help us manage within our buildings and also keep kids, and it's a fluid movement, or when lunch shifts are and how many kids are in there. And some of the schools have chosen or may choose that we're gonna keep a similar process that they currently have, but that's a school-based decision. But it wouldn't be because of necessarily social distancing protocol.
And so I take it there's not gonna be any more letters being sent about contact tracing, or close contact,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct.
And I know that some people are still kind of nervous about that. But I can also appreciate that when we did get those letters, sometimes some families were getting 6 letters in a day, because either the same student, they were in multiple classes together, and so then it became confusing if it was, you know, did they come in close contact with 6 people or the same person 6 times, and so, and it got very clunky administratively, I know too, so.
For sure, and it's also very difficult because we're not able to say who that student is or that adult is, and in many cases, I'm not sure that changed necessarily behavior, because we should be checking our symptoms every day, whether or not I was a close contact or not. I could be a close contact with somebody at Schnucks, you know, or someplace else that is outside the school building, and I should be every day noticing what changes I may have, and if I have some of those symptoms, I need to stay home and consult my healthcare provider.
Could I just, Diane Brown moved up there, I think,
Hey.
but I just about, but I would just like to say, I know Greg and Diane have been meeting with the nurses, and, you know, one of the things that our nurses were so involved last year in contact tracing and doing work that, you know, kind of took them away from their work, and I believe what I'm hearing is they're pretty excited to be able to go back, and they're professionally trained to be, you know, attentive to the health needs, and I think your staff is really excited about being able to more focus on individual student needs and health and doing all this calling and contact tracing. Is that fair?
It's fair to say that, yes, many of them have said they are excited to be able to return to focusing more on pre-COVID nursing, school nursing practices. So, yes, there will be other challenges to face as we step back a little bit from, you know, where we've been. But I think for the most part, the nurses are ready to go with that and try to step back.
I just think we owe so much to the work that the nurses did last year. They certainly took on a lot and took on a major, so thank you for all that work. Thanks to the nurses and staff. But I think we're now pleased to move to this level of service and take some pressure off the contact tracing and all the other work.
Our nurses are outstanding professionals, just like our teachers in the classroom, who make decisions every day, trying to do what's in the best interest of our students, and knowing that it's not just going to say, I follow this box, I do this, and I do this, and it's all procedural. They're going to use their judgment and their training and their skills to help advise families on their next steps. And I think that's a good step forward, and I think it really values them as professionals as well. I also know too, with shifts, it took us a while to make change. When we made major changes 2.5 years ago, and every change that we make, it takes a little bit of time to move into that next phase or whatever that phase is. And that's going to be the same way this time. There's going to be some bumps in the road. There's going to be some folks that are going to ask questions, and while we ask them, we're going to do the best thing that we can do, answer them, and ensure that we follow our communicable disease policies, as well as and I believe that's going to keep our kids healthy and safe and keep our schools functioning throughout the school year at a high level.
I'll just add real fast, and too, just for the mere fact, for a pandemic response plan to come out here, we have nobody talking about it during comments. We've gotten very few emails, which I think is great too. It's like our community does support this new plan going forward.
And if I could add, we had a Ed Plus superintendents meeting today, and the superintendents are saying, because our plan is very, very similar to the region. There are some districts in North County that are still a bit more cautious and moving a little bit more with caution, but we all said that our community seems to be very supportive. Very few of us are getting, a lot of communication and more praise than criticism. So.
One more point, Greg, I understand that the CDC is going to be coming out soon with some guidelines for schools and educational institutions, and I would assume that somebody would be looking at that, and that if we need to make any changes to our plan based on what and it almost sounds like they're going to have more relaxed guidelines anyway, so we'll probably be okay, but I have no idea when those new guidelines are going to come out.
We're not sure.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, some school districts start. I know my nephew's in Florida. His school started today.
Right.
So,
right, yeah.
but yes, we do monitor. We'll continue to monitor that. We'll continue to monitor the health numbers and data that we have within the region. I think it's important to use those as pieces of information to help us make informed decisions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of the hard work in putting this together. I was probably one of the ones that was like, oh, I don't want to change things yet. But I also understand that the COVID from 2020 is not the COVID of today, and that putting it more in line with the rest of our contagious diseases really makes more sense. I just want to make sure that all of our parents understand those guidelines as well. I know several have sent kids to school sick, and I just want to make sure that we're not doing that, and if they are going to school sick, that they're being sent home.
Absolutely. We want to continue to encourage our families and our staff members. If you're not feeling well, stay home. Mm-hmm. The other piece I forgot to mention with the medical health advisory, testing still helps. So if you're not feeling well, you have symptoms, we also have links out there for at-home tests. So if those folks that want to take those to see where they're at, I think is very, very valid and should be doing that. And if someone's not feeling good, please don't come to school, don't come to work. Like, take care of yourself, but really take care of others by doing that as well.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Appreciate it. Thank
and
you.
Tiffany.
And Diane.
And Diane. Yeah.
Thank you.
So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education adopt the resolution regarding the 2022-2023 pandemic response plan as presented in the August 10th, 2022 board meeting materials.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Next up, I'd like to invite Patty Bedborough, our Chief Financial Officer, to share a little bit of information about our bond election resolution.
Thank you very, very much. So tonight, I would like to present to you our language that has been developed for what will be known as Proposition S. So this language was developed not only from using our approved project list that you approved in June. So we had feedback from Superintendent's Action Team, but specifically from Paul Tandy and Annie Dickerson, along with the development of all the paperwork necessary for the filing with the county from Jason Terry, which is our bond counsel that we employ through Gilmore and Bell. So with this, it does include some of our major projects that will be part of our $265 million no tax levy increase bond issue. And at this point in time, I would ask if you have any questions.
I don't think we have any questions.
Awesome.
I think I would just like to say that you and the rest of the bond campaign team have just done a great job of communicating with the community and providing opportunities for input, whether it's the community's input or the board's input over the last 6 months. And I think we're all comfortable with where we're headed.
And in preparation for this, I know we did have a couple of questions and you clarified, and so appreciate that. And then it looks like a document that you routed to us is an FAQ, that if the community wants more information, they can go deeper into what all of the various different specific projects are at each of the schools, correct?
Absolutely. So the communications team will be deploying that in the next few days, I would assume, because we've just recently approved that document. So yes, that will be, a little bit deeper dive. And as a school district, we would be able to provide educational material, but not promotional material.
Okay.
Just curious, this is a random question. How much is it costing the district to put this on the ballot?
Well, we do not have a price beforehand, but I believe the last time it was right around $90,000
We can look it
on
up.
the November ballot, but we can provide that exact figure, because sometimes we pay a certain amount and we'll get a refund or we'll get an extra bill. So it all depends on everything that is on the ballot and the total cost of the election.
Okay.
And then we get our share that is then provided to us.
And might I say, Nikki Mistover really does a good job of communicating and staying in touch with the election boards.
Absolutely.
Why Proposition S? How do we end up with any specific letter?
Well, Mr. Tandy, would you like to come in and help us with the response to that?
There's a story
I
behind
certainly
that.
would not want to misspeak on that.
I know the answer.
Do you? In school, I guess, but.
So, first of all, we've used it a couple times in the past, but the theme and the messaging is similar because it's a similar facilities-related bond, and the theme and messaging is still strong school, strong community is the overarching thing. And so the S is the fit. Yes on S, strong school, strong community.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't think so. Thank you very much.
You knew that?
I did. Yeah, it was P a few years ago.
What was that for?
Parkway.
Oh.
So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the resolution calling for Proposition S, a $265 million bond issue that will be a no tax rate increase to be placed on the November 8th, 2022 ballot as described in the August 10th, 2022 board material.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please, Nikki.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. We have no policy review tonight. However, we do have some guests. With Chartwells, we're going to have a report on the Chartwells progress over this last year and what's to come. So, Patty, would you like to introduce our guests?
Yes, I would love to introduce our guest. So our first guest that'll be up here speaking is Carl Nowicki. He is our resident district manager from Chartwells, but actually serves completely in Parkway. So with that, Carl is going to give you a full report on our success.
Thank you. Good evening. Board President Todd, Vice President Hopper, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. Marty, and Mrs. Stover. Like Patty said, I'm Carl Nowicki, your resident district manager. I'm going to go over the agenda real quick. We're going to do a meet the team, good news update, some obstacles and opportunities, and what's next. So I have with me tonight Executive Chef Robert Grotha. He's in Parkway. Our resident dietitian, Kenny Whitty. Our St. Louis area district manager, Fernando Gonzalez. And then I have Brooke Harrington with Bayless Schools as well. And not in attendance, we have Rachel Mintz, who's your Director of Child Nutrition Services, Susan Barks, your Operations Supervisor, Savannah Viernes, the Marketing Specialist, Kenny Whitty, well, he's here, Pam Weberg, your Production Supervisor, Sue Bloom, Purchasing Specialist, and Lisa Tyndall, Administrative Assistant. So with that, I'll get straight into the good news. So at Chartwells, we like to bring the happy and healthy. We saw a huge uptick in participation this year, 100% plus increase in breakfast, and a 40% increase in lunch participation above school year 19, the pre-pandemic school year. We served roughly 8,100 lunches and 3,700 breakfasts per day, which is over 2 million meals this year. While we recognize all students are free, we're free, the fact that the numbers remained high throughout the school year, I believe is a testament to the overall satisfaction of the program. Some of the things that helped this was done in part to Chartwells adding ovens at all the middle and elementary schools so that more food could be cooked on site. This allowed us to present a fresh, higher quality product. Also, as the year progressed, we were able to successfully roll out a majority of our programs. So how did we get this done? We were able to do this with our great associates, your great associates. All these meals wouldn't have happened without the amazing staff that we have. Even with the full staff, this would have been a great achievement, but they pulled it off despite being short. We couldn't be prouder of what they accomplished, so recognizing our staff has been a huge priority and just a small token of our appreciation. Another recognition, another recognition program was our Chartwells Cheers program. We were able to roll this out. These associates, every month, they're voted on by their peers, and we celebrate them as associates who go above and beyond to make an impact in their school buildings, in their cafeterias. Each month, we made sure they were recognized among their peers, and also with the school, with the principals. These individuals also were featured in our employee newsletter so they could shine throughout the district. One of my favorite events that we had this year, I don't know if anybody saw it when we did it, it was School Lunch Hero Day. We not only got to show off our great staff, but we're able to give a copy of the newest Lunch Lady book. I don't know if any of your kids have ever read it. It was called The Second Helping. We donated a copy to all the elementary schools. And then our very own Lynn French was able to go out. She dressed up like the character in the book. She was able to go out and read to the second grade class at Sorrento Springs. Some of the other things we were able to do, if anybody's made it out to West High, we were able to take West High from approximately 1968 to 2021 in a little over 4 weeks. We added new lighting, tray slide, paint, flooring, electric, among other things. So if you haven't seen West High, it's a huge difference. And we didn't stop there. We were able to touch every one of the schools with some kind of renovation, whether it was paint, equipment, signage, or a little of all of those. So the schools shown tonight, we have Barrett's, the Bobcat Cafe, and then Belle Reeve. So it just add a little pop and a little excitement to the schools and celebrated them. Some of the highlights we had this year, we got to roll out, we have 2 food trucks. We have them both in operation now. We were able to run out one of the food trucks at Fern Ridge for a tacho food truck event. We were able to serve the entire school lunch out of the food truck. We also had our Parkway food pantry donation. That's something that'll happen every year in the fall. We were able to roll out some live demos, and then probably my favorite interactive event that we did was a seed to table gardening event. Our staff went out, and it was at Green Trails, and we picked vegetables for the spring season and helped them plant their summer vegetables. But we took those vegetables that we picked and were able to taste them on Monday. Chef Rob and his team was able to put together a taste testing from everything out of the garden, so the students got to taste what they picked. So that was a real neat event. So, obstacles, opportunities, and what's next. So everybody's familiar with supply chain. We hear it all the time right now. And when it came to supply chain, last year had its ups and downs. This presented challenges in making weekly and sometimes daily substitutions to ensure that students were fed. The silver lining here is that even though we were faced with disruptions, your partnership with Chartwells made sure we received the necessary product to feed the children. Due to Chartwell's buying power, as well as being part of Food Buy, the largest procurement organization in North America, the district was insulated from the worst case scenarios. That doesn't mean we got everything we ordered, as we received lots of substitutes, shorts, and even some outs when it comes to products. But it did mean we always received products. We always got something in replacement for it. And as we roll into this year, we're cautiously optimistic regarding supply chain, as all of our providers feel they have a grasp on production and stocking. We're not to where we were in the pre-pandemic landscape. We are certainly in a better place than we started last year. Another obstacle we face, just like every other department at this point, is staffing. Our department navigated last year being down approximately 25% of our workforce. This changed how we operate on a day-to-day basis. Despite a huge hiring push, we are roughly in a little bit better position as we start this school year. We've lost staff due to transferring to other positions within Parkway, retiring, or getting out of the industry altogether. This summer, we have had a huge hiring push. We've interviewed 450 plus people. We're able to hire roughly 30 to 32 people at this point, so we have about a 6% success rate as far as interviewing and hiring. Which doesn't sound great, but we're looking at this with positivity. We have lost a lot of associates with a lot of experience, but we hope that with the new associates we can find efficiencies in ways that we can change things to make it better. Although we've been able to operate with limited workforce, we still intend to continue to fill most, if not all, of the open positions that we have. We will be reevaluating needs real time as we hire. Full staff allows us to provide our entire program, which is a huge benefit for the students and the district overall. So program implementation. At the end of the year, we were able to start rolling out as the staff got comfortable with the programs and we were hiring a few more people. We were able to roll out some of our key programs. And we plan on following that up this year with rolling them out completely. So you can see on the screen, we have Discovery Kitchen. This is our platform under which we combine cooking demonstrations, food tastings, and implement the food into the school menu itself. It's where we aim to have students connect hands-on learning activities with delicious food they can experience at school or at home. So the other one we have is Mood Boost. This is a fun program we have at our elementaries and middle schools. For years we've been teaching kids about the association between their food choices and their physical health. The Mood Boost program takes a different approach to the students, helping them understand which foods can impact their mental well-being by focusing on 6 moods that are easy for elementary and middle school students to relate to: happy, alert, calm, strong, confident, and smart. And so these recipes that are tasted with the students are implemented into the menus over a 6-week period, and then it kind of rotates throughout the school year. And then they'll be called out so the students will be aware of what they're tasting and how it affects them. The other one is for our high school. It's called Student Choice. This gives our high school students a true voice in deciding which foods are featured on their menus through fun tasting and voting events. Some of the other projects we're looking at, I'll go back to Green Trails where we had the garden tasting. We have some, they're called farm shelves. It's a vertical garden that can go in a school. It plugs in and it hooks up to water and they can grow all year. So we have put one at Green Trails. We identified them. They're excited about having it, and we're looking for 3 other schools to implement this. And so it can be used in the food program. It can be used just for students to learn how to grow and plant food. And then we're also going to get more involved with the garden programs themselves. We're also looking at doing a culinary competition We're a Discovery Kitchen Cook-Off, where we're hoping to get all the regions to compete against each other in a culinary competition similar to Chopped. We also have our food trucks that we'll be rolling out fully, using them as like teaching kitchens, featuring them so we can feature some lunch menu items, and using them for any catering events or anything throughout the district. And we also have a district employee wellness enrichment program that we'll be rolling out to the district as well. I'd like to open it up for questions now as well.
I just want to make a comment that I want to thank you for what you did last year. My kindergartner, who won't eat anything that we make her, ate every single thing every single day that you guys brought to her, and quote unquote, it was made by professionals, so that's why it's So I just want to thank you guys. Like I said, my kids love it and appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. I have the same thing with my 4-year-old. She'll eat everything at school, but she gets home and she doesn't know how to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just bring up, in preparation for tonight's meeting, I did some perusing on the NutriSlice app, the menu selections for each of the schools to kind of get an idea of what does the first week of school look like and what the kids might be eating. And so I did have some concerns, and I want to thank Rachel, who did reach out and address some of those concerns. We had a follow-up with Patty Bedborough also on Tuesday morning. But just so people understand that my concern was with the allergen filters, and immediately there were, when there's only like one hot item served, it was automatically eliminated because of multiple allergies. One of the big items that was eliminated was pizza because of sesame, but I understand now that that's actually an error in the app. Is that correct, or is there indeed sesame in the pizza?
No, there's not sesame in the pizza dough. So we added that allergen, and with supply chain issues that we had over the last year, there were some products that we'd get in that have that allergen in it, and we can certainly remove it until we know what the supply chains look like. We kind of just left it in there. We didn't want to lead anybody down the wrong direction, but our current product that we're getting now does not have any sesame. So we've worked with Kenny to get it removed from NutriSlice, and then we'll be monitoring that real time just to make sure that if we get something in, we'll add that back in. And we put it out there on NutriSlice to make sure that if you have food allergies, to just be checking the menus regularly just to make sure, because with the supply chain disruptions, as much as we'd like to guarantee that the product's not going to have something, we'll note it in there, and we'll make the nurses and the school aware of it if something does change. But there are going to be changes. Hopefully there's no changes, but in the real world there probably will be a few.
And then it sounds like there are actual multiple options for different cereals in the morning at breakfast. Right now the app is only showing one cereal a day at each school, but it sounds like that's really, again, a barrier of the software program can't.
Yes and no. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So if we list out everything that we could potentially have, and we don't have something, we get the same thing. So we always like to put one option out there that we know we're going to have, and then have the additional options that are available for the students.
And there will be information for families so that they'll understand that, or I guess as they get to know how the process is and what they're going through every day, what's available.
And I can't speak for the students, but I believe they're pretty familiar with that, and we can certainly put something out to kind of alert the parents. So I think it's probably an education thing for the parents, just making sure they're aware of what's available. But I think the students in general probably, they know a little bit more about it.
And it sounds like you also work with families who do have very specific allergies, that some special meals might be prepared for them in advance to help them to be able to have options at mealtime.
Mm-hmm. So we have it's a 504 plan, correct? Yeah, it's a 504 plan, so it's a meal modification form. So if there is a food allergy, they would work with Kenny, and Kenny would work with Diane, and we would identify that, and we would make whatever accommodation is needed at no additional cost or anything for the students, so they're able to get that product that they need, that they're, not overtly identify them or anything like that. So if it's cheeseburger, they'd get a cheeseburger just with a gluten-free bun or something like that. So But it's key for the parents to communicate with us to let us know what those allergies are. The more we know, the better we can assist them.
And how would a family do that? Would they, who would they reach out? They have to, you want them to reach out to Chartwells specifically?
Yeah,
or-
so on the back to school page, there is an allergies tab, and then on our website, there'll be an allergies tab. And we can also put this on the NutriSlice site as well, but it goes to Kenny, and Kenny starts that process and communicates with the parents and makes sure they have everything they need. So it's laid out pretty good in the, and he also has an example form on there as well, but it's laid out pretty good on the back to school page and then also on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Carl, go ahead, Skip. Go
I
ahead.
would say my children, I mentioned this, and they wanted me to ask about if we could have macaroni and cheese every day and a bottomless Nutella station, even if just at Bellerive.
So I officially ordered Nutella fountains. They should be supply chains. I don't know when they'll be here, but they should be here soon.
I appreciate it. All right, Dr. White, you can get back to
Well,
the
no,
first
I just, on Monday morning, I think that Jeff and I are going to be greeting your staff. And I was impressed last year. So maybe just Monday morning, a week ahead of school, your staff is really going to be doing a lot of training and work, maybe just a little, some of the high points of what they're going to be going through next week. Because I was impressed last year with the amount of time and the detail.
So the way we do it, we have a 2-day like classroom type training. So we break the staff up into two pieces. On Monday, half the class or half the staff will be with Chef Robin, our chefs, our region chefs in the kitchen, prepping for day one, kind of showing them what day one's going to look like and getting that ready and teaching them all the culinary skills. And then the other half is going to be classroom learning, whether it's marketing, the dietitian, he's going to be doing like production records, things like that, sorry. And then we're going to be doing safety training. What's the other one? There's 4 classrooms. Customer service. So, and then the folks that are in the kitchen, they're practicing day one menus, but they're also preparing lunch for the entire staff. So they'll come together, we'll do a kitchen walkthrough, they'll get to see how everything's supposed to be set up and served, and we'll have lunch, and then the next day, everybody flops. And on Wednesday, we do safe school trainings, and then everybody kind of gets in their kitchens and gets prepped for that Monday morning. So it's a big process. It's a great training, and it's usually a lot of fun. We're glad you guys are coming out.
We'll be happy to be there.
One last question I had about the food trucks. Is that part of the My School Bucks program also, that, or do they have to pay separate at a food truck, and is there a schedule that students know? And what, are they going to elementary, middle, and high school, or just certain schools? How does that work?
So we don't have a specific schedule set. Right now, it's kind of a first come, first served basis. If, Bellerive messages us and says, hey, we'd like to have the food truck there for an event or to serve lunch, we'll work with them. It might be for a special grade or, whatever the case might be. And we schedule it out that way. But to your point, when we go to the schools and we're serving food, it might look a little different than what's they normally see in the cafeteria, but there's no additional charge. So if it's a full pay student, they're full pay. If it's reduced, it's reduced. If it's free, it's free. So we follow the meal patterns and the program, but they get access to the food truck and the different stuff. And it might just be the regular meal that's getting served out of the food truck. We used it this last year with a few economics classes. I think it was an elementary school. And they had to build their own food truck in the class, and then they got to come out and tour it and see how it works. And Chef Rob went over what it looks like a day in the life of the food truck and stuff like that. So it's used for that. And then also like teaching classroom. It's really, it's endless opportunities, whatever we can use them for.
Thank you.
So, we know last year and the year before we had free lunches for our students. With the knowledge that we won't have that going forward, are you anticipating a reduction in purchases, or and how much, if you're expecting that?
I think I'd be lying if I said we didn't anticipate a little of a reduction, but overall, I don't think we're anticipating a huge reduction in the participation numbers. We're looking back to the pre-pandemic, like 18-19. Those are the numbers that we're looking at when we're looking from a financial standpoint, like where we think where it's going to land. So we're using those numbers to forecast what we think this year is going to look like. So if we can hit those numbers or better, then I think I think it's very realistic.
I think that's a great question, and are we gonna work harder to, make sure, I think parents who are eligible for free and reduced lunch probably didn't have to last, so are we gonna market that? And that's maybe the principals and others will be working on that?
So we've been pushing that pretty hard, just making sure all the parents are aware. The good news is that we have a 30-day grace period once the students come back. If they were free and reduced pre-pandemic, or everybody being free, they're gonna have a 30-day grace period to get that paperwork in and get everything filled out. So that buys, if parents maybe just don't see it, don't know about it, it buys them a little bit of time to get back to those free and reduced statuses. And there might be some families that are now free and reduced that weren't before too, so.
Okay.
Oh, you had also mentioned that you had put in ovens at some of the schools. Do all schools have ovens?
They do now.
Okay.
So we have elementary schools, we have, because we're rolling out some different pizza options at the elementary, so we have like a regular, they're both regular ovens, but one that was more designed for like those sides, and then now we have one that's big enough to do some pizzas and things like that. In the middle schools, we added pizza ovens that takes about 4.5 minutes, but they're right behind the line, so it's pretty interactive, so the students see the pizzas going in the oven, coming out of the oven, going straight to the line. So it just kind of gives you that atmosphere. You get to smell it, see it, all that kind of stuff. So yes, to answer your question, all the schools have ovens. That was the scenic route, sorry.
And you mentioned the benefit of that is fresher food, but it also means less trucks on the road and less manpower to move food back and forth, and so those are all good things.
Our goal is to, at some point, and I mean, I don't know how realistic it is to cook out of each of the kitchens and kind of minimize that production kitchen and just have that be for that high school. So that's the goal. It's going to take some time, but that's certainly the goal.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned pizzas. I know my son loves pizza day. I guess it's 2 questions. Will there be a pizza day every week?
Yes.
In the elementary schools?
Yeah.
What day will it be?
That is good. True.
Typically Friday. We like to make the kids happy on Friday so they have a good weekend.
Okay. And then the other question is, okay, previously it was restaurant pizza day. I'm not sure exactly what your pizzas look like. I remember the square ones when I was a kid. But the restaurant pizza days were pretty small slices, and my son would like 3 of them. That's a lot of money. That's like, more than a Domino's $5 pizza.
So our long-term plan, and why we put those ovens in at the elementaries, is to do our homemade pizzas at the elementary schools. Some of that has to do with staffing, logistics, things like that. So we're not quite there yet. But last year we were, I don't want to say victim, but we were a victim to the supply chain, and we weren't able to get some of the pizza products that we sourced that we wanted to get, so we were kind of tied to some of those square pizzas. Not ideal, not what we wanted to do, but it's where we were.
Hey, I like the square pizzas. Good.
It's nostalgia, right? So with that, we had, and I was going to mention it earlier, but Craig Elementary, they have Craig's core student group. They wrote us a nice letter just asking, hey, are there going to be different pizza options? We'd really like to speak with you. It was very professional, so we got with Dr. Nunn and Dr. Duckworth, and we met with this group, and we had a couple meetings with them, just heard their concerns, and then they were kind of the voice for the elementary school. So we took a bunch of products, taste tested them with them, and they determined kind of what we wanted to have on the menu. So it was kind of by the students, for the students type thing. So they spoke up, and they were the ones that kind of got to drive the process. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool, thank you.
Just sort of being observant societally, you see a lot more folks that seem to be interested in having meatless options periodically. And I know that's something that you offer through the schools. And I'm just curious, with your analysis, have you seen more sort of an uptick? Is there a popularity in meatless options? There's also a lot of different types of plant-based proteins available now. Have you, do you leverage that? Or is there like any Beyond Burgers or anything along those lines that you put out for the kids?
I don't know if it's specifically Beyond. We do look at all that stuff. And I don't know, we have some of it on our menus. I think Chef Rob and Kenny can probably speak to this better than I can. If you guys have any insight on this, is it all right if I bring them up? Or
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
thank you again for the opportunity to be here this evening. But yeah, that is something that we like to stay on the forefront of is with our menu planning, is making sure that we have options available to those students, but also that they're engaging and they're exciting. On an elementary school level, we're not seeing it as much yet, although we do have options available almost every week, almost every day, for our students that are observing a vegetarian style diet. Middle schools and high schools, our students are a lot more adventurous, so we're incorporating those options into it. We do utilize the Morningstar products, so we've got a vegetarian patty and a vegetarian nugget that we feature as well too. So, and the students are very receptive of it and they get really excited about it, and there are times that we outsell the chicken nuggets with our vegetarian nuggets. So yeah, we do explore and try to stay on the cutting edge of our menu development when it comes to those options.
Thank you. Thanks, great.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I just want to say, I think Patty, who works very, very closely in the first year, would agree that there was some obstacles because of COVID, but overall, I think we were very, very pleased with the response, Carl, of your staff, and we certainly are so grateful that a lot of the folks that have been long-term in Parkway continued, and I think we're treated very, very well by Chartwells, and have continued to stay with us. So thank you for working with us and working with our existing staff.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the feedback. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thanks.
Okay, we have no work session or special meeting, so may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all for attending.